This meeting is being recorded.
All right. So welcome again today to our SCMLE Network Roundtable. We're excited to get started. It is 5:02, so we're going to go ahead and dive in. We have lots of special guests with us today. These are experts from all across the state, and we are really thrilled to have them here answering some questions about beginning the year in a multilingual learner program. My name's Katie Crook. I'm the Executive Director of the South Carolina Multilingual Learner Educator Network. We also have two of our staff members, Alexis Lawton and Jen Saunders, who are co-directors of professional support. They're helping to help guide our professional development program this year. We're really thankful to have them. They bring lots of expertise to the table. We have some panelists with us as well who also serve on our leadership team. They are going to be helping to answer questions today. You can see we have Jonathan White, Leanna Bell Sanchez, April Davis, Janet Herrera Gant, and Dr. Lisa Edge here with us today. So you can look forward to hearing from them in just a little while. The South Carolina Multilingual Learner Educator Network started in 2019 as an effort to connect South Carolina teachers around serving multilingual learners and their families. We know here in South Carolina that multilingual learners face some barriers that make it harder for them to experience success compared to their native English speaking peers, but we want to change that. So we are offering free professional development to teachers. That's one of our biggest constraining factors here in South Carolina, that teachers are not necessarily prepared to work with these students and families. So we provide free professional development resources and advocacy to help educators create spaces where multilingual learners and their families can thrive. So that's why we exist, and each year we grow our impact and our efforts, and it's really exciting to be a part of such a dynamic team. So we're going to take a minute to find out a little bit about who all is here. So I'm going to put a link in the chat for you to switch over to, and this is a Google Sheets slide. So I'm going to see if I can hop over to that myself. All right, so what you're going to be doing is taking a pen. Let's get this shared. So the link for this is in the chat. If you need it, I may need one of my trusty helpers to add it to the chat for anybody new who's coming in. Take a pen from the side of your screen and move it to where you are right now. I would love to see where we are all coming from today. I know it's going to be across the state. And let me see if I can move mine up here to the upstate. It's fun to see the dots popping up all over the place and to know that we can build community from far away because of the internet, which we love.
And demonstrate our geography skills.
That's right.
Oh no, I'm good at this.
If we need more pins, we can make more. I know, I really don't know where exactly in my county I am. I'm just put myself in the middle. I'm in Greenville County. So if you want to go ahead and put yourself somewhere, and then in the chat, once you're finished doing that, if you want to go ahead and just tell us your name and tell us something interesting about where you are. I am in Greenville County. And we have the highest number of multilingual learners in the state. We're also the biggest county, right, Janet? Are we the biggest county? Yeah, we're the biggest county, so it's really not fair that we have the highest number, but anyway, it is the most in the state. Union, see, that would be so horrible because I don't even know where to put Union. Karen, I don't even know how to help you. I'm so sorry. Does anybody know where Union is? I'm sure we can figure that out. I think it's across the top of the upstate somewhere, maybe. All right, so once you are adding your little pin to the map. We're just um, saying in the chat our name and something interesting about where we're from. It's fun to see this.
Union is under Cherokee, so to the right of, at the top of the screen, it's going to be one county down. Go over more to your left.
More to my left.
Yeah,
Here?
and then go down one. That's you. Go up. That's Union County. That second one down. That's Union County.
This one, right? See, I don't know if it's the dot where I'm supposed to be or the pin, the actual pin. But anyway, are we in the right area?
That's Union County, yes.
Yes, I was right. I said across the upstate. We were getting there. Thank you. Sorry that I didn't know that better, but it's fun to see see folks tuning in. I think we've got a couple of different people from Walterboro here tonight. So thank you for joining. Really glad to have everybody here. So you can continue to add your pin and your name and something interesting about yourself in the chat while we get the second screen shared again. All right. Super fun to be connected with all of you. Okay. So we are going to kick off our professional development program this year with a question and answer forum where we're going to be diving into some foundational topics and then opening the floor for discussion from some of our panelists. So we're also planning to point you to some resources that are on our website and social media. So stay connected in the chat as the event rolls on, and make sure to connect with us on social media afterwards and through our mailing list. I am going to pass the mic over to Alexis Lawton, who is one of our program directors for professional support. We're really excited to have her here as our MC. She's going to be moving us through our format and our topics for this evening. And so without further ado, Alexis.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Katie. Thank you so much for everyone coming to our first event. So today's format, so we have several topics. Each topic will be given a time limit of 7 to 8 minutes. I'll introduce each topic and ask an initial probing question. And when time is up, we'll move on to the next topic. So you are more than welcome to pose questions in the chat. Only panelists will be speaking, but we hope to address the questions that you may have at the end. So the first topic is on students and families. So I'm going to ask some questions to Lee Annabelle. So what are some ways to understand the cultural and linguistic backgrounds of our multilingual students?
Hi, so I think the best way is to really get to know your students. Ask the questions. If that means you have to use a translator, do it, because once you know their background and their culture, you'll be able to help them in many ways that you don't really realize.
How can teachers build trust and partnerships with multilingual learner families? And what do these students and families want teachers to know?
Okay, so recently I had a conversation with a few of our older students. That's just who I could get a hold of in that moment. And I asked the question, what do you want your teachers to know, like about you? And one of them said, just get to know me, get to know who I am, get to know where I'm from, what are things that I like. And so once the teacher knows the student, then you have some insight on who the family is. And really, once you start asking, what do you want people to know about you? They open up like a book. They will tell you everything. Everything that you need to know for your kids to actually be successful. So, yeah.
Do you have a success story about a time when family engagement impacted student success?
I could go on for days. I do. So we host, we call it Parent University, but I've heard other districts call it something different. And we've seen that through constant communication with your families, it actually helps the students get comfortable with you. Once you're just talking to your students, and your students are obviously going home and telling their parents, and then they want you to see, they want to be seen and they want to be heard. And so once you can establish some kind of communication with them and just speaking with them, and they love it. They love for you. They love to tell you where they're from and what they do and who their family is. The younger the child, obviously, the more they want to talk about, where they're from and all the fun things. But I would definitely, Parent University opened up so many doors in our little community, because we're from a really tiny town in Chesterfield County. And so our families never knew each other until we started Parent University. And then that's how they've started kind of making friendships outside of school, and their kids became friends at school. And so now we've created that someone is being friends with someone that they would have never thought about. So it's been amazing.
Alexis, can I chime in for a second? Because this is something that I wanted to talk about when we were putting together these slides and these questions. And the success story that stands out to me is just that I work with a school and with a teacher who, in terms of success, so when you look at the WIDA access scores and the MET target percentage for their school this past year, 2 years in a row, more than 80% of the students in the school met their target on WIDA access.
Oh,
We
that's
have
amazing.
90% this past school year. And we have people ask all the time, what is it? What's the magic that happens at that school? And the easy answer by far is parent engagement. Parent engagement happens at that school better than anywhere else. You have teachers, a specific ESOL teacher who drives a lot of engagement with parents from the moment that, over the summer, before school starts, from the moment school starts, there are any and all sorts of ways to keep parents involved in groups, WhatsApp chats, to, just access to being in the school, knowing they have somebody that they can reach out to, knowing that teacher is building connections with the other teachers in the building. To the point where, and this is the Annabelle, I'm curious, like, what your thoughts are on this, because I have this teacher who, she said that over the summer she had parents calling her because they were sick of their kids being bored and they needed work to do.
Yeah.
And she was providing, like, okay, here's books, right? Trying to send online books to families because of the connections that had been made there.
Yeah.
And to the point where this teacher said, when you talk to her, and have you ever had this experience where she like tells parents what they need to be doing, like they rely on her so much for advice and support, that she's like, I have to call them and be like, look, they need to be doing work on Saturday.
Yeah, so I'm that person here. I had parents call me like before summer break and say, well, what are the kids going to do over summer? And I was like, it's summer break. Most kids don't want to do any work. They don't want to know about school. They want to break. And the parents were like, but you think that's good for them? And I was like, they do need a break, so maybe. But we made little packets and we sent home little packets, and we said, if you get this done over the summer and you bring it back when we start school, we're going to give you a prize. And we did. And all of our students brought their little packets back. All of them. And some of them were so worried. I would get calls because when I started my position, I tried, we use Remind here. It's an app that for communication. It didn't work out and no one really paid any attention to it. And then I was like, I need to do what I know that they use. And so all our ML families use WhatsApp. And so I have a group for elementary school parents, and then I have a group for high school parents, and I'm on there all the time. And my kids are like, okay, are you gonna have time for us? I'm like, yeah, but I have a lot to do here. So yeah, once they get comfortable with you, they're gonna need a lot of your help. A lot. And just with keeping their kids busy. So
I think sometimes too, our newcomer families may not know, they may be unfamiliar with how parents are encouraged to participate in the
Mhm.
educational process of their children.
Yeah.
In other countries, sometimes educators are revered as the experts and parents don't interfere with that process. So letting parents know at the onset that their input is welcome and actually really appreciated, and we hope for that, sets
yeah.
the expectation, and then it empowers parents to do what is best for their child when they might not otherwise know. I had a student with special needs, and in his previous country, in his home country, he didn't receive services, and his parents withdrew him from school because he didn't have the resources there that he needed. And so, with informing the parent about the special education process, the parent was brought into that whole process and was able to advocate for their child to receive services that they so desperately needed. But without that advocacy and connecting with parents, they may not have been empowered or even known that that was a possibility. So it's really wonderful and necessary to connect with parents from the very beginning and just let them know that they are encouraged to be a part of that process.
Oh yeah. And you'd be surprised that when you bring this information to the parents and they're like, I had no idea it was, or that simple, or this is how you had to do. And I'm like, yeah, it was that easy to get it done. But again, they come from a background where stuff like that is like a stigma. It never really happens. Kids are always normal and kids are, nothing's wrong with them. And I'm like, well, they just need a little bit more help. And that's what we're here for, to give them that help that they need, regardless of what it is. So,
How are we doing on time, Alexis?
Do we have a timer? Because I wasn't keeping time. Are we, can we go to another?
Yeah, let's move on, and
Yeah.
I can keep a time too if you'd like.
Okay.
Okay.
So the next focus is on compliance. Jonathan, there are a couple questions here. First question, what are the key compliance responsibilities educators of multilingual learners need to know at the start of the school year?
Yeah, compliance is so frustrating. I think what I would say at first about compliance is don't let it overwhelm you. Don't let it be what your job is, because it can't be. So I try to simplify compliance into, and I do my best. And so I'll post to everybody else here who's talking, is if this sounds right to you or not. But I try to pose that compliance is really just, there's three things. There's three parts to compliance, right? So you have to assess kids, communicate to parents, and monitor students, right? And anything that we're doing falls into those categories. And all of those things, as you do those things, there's proof that you've done them. You're going to generate some sort of proof. And that's essentially all that compliance is about, right? So we assess kids when we screen them at the beginning of the year. We assess kids when we take access. There's lots of little compliance pieces that go with that. We communicate to families. Those are the three pieces that are written into federal law. We communicate to families. We have to make sure we identify them. We send a letter. We make sure that we reassess them. When they have a new score, we send a letter. And then we make sure that they're doing well in school. We monitor their grades. We monitor their attendance. We monitor their performance in school. Everything kind of falls into those categories for me. And then there's lots of little details there and the other part I tell people when I talk about compliance all the time is you have to be comfortable forgetting things about compliance and finding the person to ask, because there's no way you can remember all of the pieces. I forget stuff about compliance and I've been doing it for a long time. But you just have to ask, and you have to just keep these cycles in mind. Yeah, and keep it simple. Don't let it overwhelm you. Like, that's really not the job. And it frustrates me when I hear people talk about the amount of paperwork, oh, there's so much paperwork to do. There really shouldn't be. ESOL shouldn't be a bunch of paperwork.
Can I jump in here, Jonathan, just to speak a little bit from my experience? And that is that I used to think that that was my main job. And the reason I thought that is because every meeting that I went to was about compliance.
Yeah.
It seemed like that's what mattered the most to some of the people around me. And it really took having colleagues, having some perspective, having some experience to recognize that I could spend my whole day on compliance.
Mhm.
I could get really detailed and I could have lots of spreadsheets, and that would take away actually from my real job, which is working with kids and teachers.
Right. You have to make it go quick so you can get back to the thing.
You
Really
do.
important.
And so I just want to encourage those of you out there who may be feeling like your number one job is compliance and because you feel pressures around you. Try to find simple systems, copy someone else's system that's working well for them, and move on as much as you can, because the real gift is getting to work with kids and their families. So just wanted to speak that word.
Yeah, I mean, that reminds me just to make the point too, that there is a positive side to compliance that does help us when it comes to families and students. And that is, compliance often is leverage, right? And I feel like sometimes it's hard to explain what that means, but I hope so if you have an idea or you can help me explain this, but oftentimes, one of the things that we get, especially with administrators and with people who care about, oh, the law, and this is what's supposed to happen, if you have things that you know need to happen for students, and for example, I have a student, we were talking about special education. I have a student who needs accommodations for special education or who needs to be pushed through the process. To me, the value of compliance is to be able to say, well, we have to do this, right? This isn't me making something up. This is written into law. And so using it to say, I need a document that proves that you are providing accommodations to students. I may not use that document. We are monitored, right? So every district is monitored by the state, every 4 years. The state has the right to come into buildings and look for all of these things happening that are compliance activities or actions, and then to look for the paperwork or to look for the evidence of compliance. They may not necessarily do that, but it helps a teacher an awful lot when you're thinking about serving families and serving kids, to be able to say, you have to do this. We have to do this. I need proof that you're implementing a language acquisition plan. You're implementing the ILAP. I mean, teacher doesn't know that somebody's not going to come check on them. But
Jonathan,
oftentimes there's good leverage there.
Oh, I'm so sorry. May I just jump in and say I completely agree with you, and it kind of cements and legitimizes our role, especially when we are by ourselves or stretched to the max among many schools. It kind of is this umbrella of sort of protection around what we do, especially for administration and teachers, because in terms of the law, it is mandatory. It's not optional. It's not an intervention that's nice to provide if we have the resources. It has to be done. So I completely agree with you about the legitimacy piece of the compliance.
Yeah, Alexis, I have 1 minute left in the 7 minutes, and my last piece will just be what I said before about it's okay to forget a lot of the things that you have to do. Just know where to go when you need that. And we had talked about wanting to share resources for, especially this piece about compliance, like the state guiding principles document and things like that. Know where those things are and know how to go back to where you can get answers for compliance. I think it's really important to say. There's a minute and a half left, Alexis, but people can kind of finish this up if they want. April, I think you're muted.
Yeah. I just wanted to quickly jump in, and Jennifer, you mentioned when you're all alone, and when I came into the school that I am at, they the staff there didn't really quite, there was about 40 children there and they did serving. They didn't quite understand what all this was. And I really am proud of them, because once I showed them, okay, these are laws. This is an ILAP. This is what an ILAP means. I have to provide accommodations for these children. We have to provide accommodations for these children. And this is why they really have rallied around these children and realized, oh, this is great. This helps us. And so it can be a piece for saying, hey, an advocacy piece, but it can also be an educational piece, because what you don't know, you don't know. And these wonderful, marvelous educators out in where I teach were trying their best, that they just didn't know.
Yeah, compliance is good guidance. That's a really good way to think of it. 8 minutes.
Okay, next focus is collaborating with teachers. Janet, what do teachers need from an MLP specialist?
Sure. Kind of similar to backing up on like what April was saying to your point of you don't know what you don't know. So I think in general in education, step one is just building trust. You have an ML teacher who's not spending all day with the student, general ed is, and sometimes that clash can be a problem. So truly being able to have that communication, that open dialogue with your general ed teacher is definitely a number one huge point, building the trust. And then from there, also building the trust too is like getting to know the environment of that classroom and showing that I'm here to support you as our ultimate goal is the same goal, which is our ML students. So having that communication as well, and then being able to demonstrate that this is not an additional piece to your workload. Like we are all maxed out in education, especially considering the current time period, beginning of the year. We have so much paperwork, learning all of our children, learning all the strategies, all the pieces to differentiate, but knowing that some of this can support all of your students and knowing that they are your students in the classroom. So that differentiation piece, as an ML specialist, I'm here to support you on what that looks like. So again, building the trust from that angle is very helpful. Some effective ways to collaborate. Sometimes just demonstrating a quick win, I think, is really useful for an ML specialist to say, hey, visuals are great. Having some opportunities for some simple discourse on some content areas that may excite your ML student, showing how putting on your slide deck, if you're doing science, you could do like a little tiny image for clouds or precipitation. You could do a little visual on there saying that, you know what, that actually might support some additional students. So that at the beginning of the year, I think sometimes is that quick win as you're like getting to know your students and how you can delve deeper. That's some practical ways to advocate for ML students during planning and PLCs or team meetings. So I have found in some of the work I've done is it's so helpful. I think general education teachers just have an all-encompassing, they're an ML student. That's it, period. And for ML specialists to really be able to dive deeper into, there's levels to this. There's different levels, and let me demonstrate the capacity for each level, ways to support at each level. And so really advocating for, yes, they're an ML student, but it's so much more than that. It's so much deeper. And so being able to show support of, okay, a visual would be great, but that actually you might have MLs who are at proficiency level 2 or 3 that could actually do a little bit more. So scaffolding is a big piece there, and being able to model that, I think would be really welcoming from general ed teachers. I've encountered so many times our general ed teachers who want to support their kids, and they don't know how. But being able to show that, hey, how you are doing some scaffolding already in your classroom for some of your kids, we can also do that based on proficiency level. So being able to share some different strategies and then having a conversation of, you know, if there's time in our schedule, I can quickly come in and like model what a proficiency 2 versus a 3 versus a 1 may look like for this specific lesson that you're working on. And it will be very, very welcoming. That would be wonderful
Man,
for
I
general
really,
ed teachers
can
to
I just
have that
jump in and
opportunity.
say, I really like this idea of like offering quick modeling. And that's something that I don't think, I mean, certainly when I started teaching, I didn't think that that was a possibility. And it was not the kind of thing that it took me a long time to consider. And I've worked with teachers now who are good at that kind of thing. It may be hard at first to develop that kind of relationship, but I love this idea of saying, just because recognizing that we can, that our modeling things, even just a positive attitude about students, right? But just our modeling of things is often the best impact that we can have. And being able to just, I love this idea of like, challenge yourself to offer to teachers, like, just let me come in and let me show you, or let me give you an example, even, I don't know, where you might advise they can do that type of modeling, but that's a cool concept.
Yeah, I mean, from a fill in the blank exercise to like a sentence starter, like something to that effect, like which one would be more beneficial for certain ML students versus other. Yeah, absolutely. We talk so much within education of IEPs and 504s and all the paperwork and all the training. But if general education teachers would have an understanding of, okay, yes, I know there's documents for my ML students and accommodations and levels, but like, I don't know, like, I don't have time to look at that. No, absolutely. It makes a difference. And let me break it. I know, let me break it down a little bit further for you. And being able to do that quick modeling, it's a game changer. It really, and it will excite them to want to be able to incorporate it more, and understanding that, okay, this isn't an entire long process that is an added level that I don't have time for. But no, you can incorporate it and have those quick wins that over time will evolve, and truly support our ML students.
1 minute, Alexis, but I agree. I think that makes a lot of sense. And that's cool.
Okay.
If there's anyone else that wanted to chime in?
That was also very helpful. I just wanted to piggyback off of what you both said about coaching and modeling and quick wins in addressing the last question for working with teachers who are super resistant. I have definitely encountered that situation, and I think relationships are first and foremost. Co-teaching is a tricky dance sometimes, especially if someone is very reluctant to kind of pass over parts of their teaching. They want to own that process a whole lot. So it takes time, but also I think always reinforcing the idea that ML accommodations or scaffolds and supports for an ML student don't always have to take pre-planning or something else. It is the thing to be doing for all kids, regardless of language proficiency, but it has to be done for our kids with who are developing their English skills.
I think with resistant, go ahead, sorry.
Oh no, that's okay. That's all I wanted to say. It doesn't always have to be an extra step or more work. It is the work. It's not an extra thing.
And I think sometimes too, sorry, Jonathan, is the idea of like, if you have someone who's willing and work with them, then it starts to spread.
Right. Yeah. Start with the
it starts to
people.
spread. And here we have some examples of where this is truly, this collaboration is effective. And so that starts to spread, rather than so many times I've seen where, okay, we have a faculty meeting, our ML specialist is going to come and talk to us, and how many people are replying to emails during that time, versus if I can come into the classroom and do a quick model with a teacher who's willing, and being able to have that win right there, and then being able to share that with other teachers, then that's going to spread throughout the building like wildfire. And then you now have a buy-in.
Yeah. Time, Alexis.
Sorry, Jonathan, I cut you off too.
No, that's good. You said it better than me.
All right, the last focus is student activities. Lisa and April, what are some go-to instructional strategies that work across proficiency levels for multilingual learners?
I'll just start with jump in. And I know we've said sentence frames, but I think a lot of people tend to think of only using those with your lower level students, but even some of our students who are English only. I mean, getting them to elaborate on their responses. We don't always expect or really make that expectation clear that we're expecting students to respond in complete sentences. And if you expect that from oral responses, then that tends to show up more in their writing. So I really like sentence frames can help our MLs, you know, on that basic level when they're learning to form sentences, but also it can help them learn to grow those sentences and elaborate on what they're saying. I like blank because, or I know this character will likely do this because the next step is, you know, when they're making predictions, you can scaffold that up. It's not always just that simple, you know, proficiency 1 level. You can make your scaffolds a little bit more involved. So, April, I mean,
And
I've got more.
I totally agree. I had that in my little bit of notes that I have here. Sentence frame important to use, especially as you said, English only. And just to kind of say again, that makes it not just another thing that I have to do. It's just woven within all of our lesson and our teaching, and posting those sentence frames for whatever kind of response you're expecting.
Webinar.
And posting them with, like, you know, a whole lot of scaffolding, most of the sentence, and we're filling in the blank all the way to just the beginning of the sentence. Gives them a visual to refer to and them some choice to kind of choose which one they're going to do. Some other things that I've seen that is easy to kind of weave into your teaching is QSSA is a really good strategy. Question, signal, I'm losing them. Someone help me.
Them.
Question, signal, STEM. Yes. Yes, thank you. And then answer. I actually was in a classroom co-teaching today. And I was so proud because the educator in that room, we were working on building some personal cubbies, and then they were going to describe them. But anyway, she had them talk to a partner, give a signal when they were ready, and then they shared something about their partner, what they learned.
Can I?
That makes me.
I also
Can I
have thought
chime in?
about.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Sure, go ahead.
No, I just because I have 3 minutes
ahead.
left, and I just wanted to ask you both that question. April, you went there where I wanted to make sure we've covered this. One of the things we talked about in planning. What are you doing right now with students? Right. So not just student activities and like what works with students, but what do you do at the beginning of the year? Like, what is the go-to activity? What are you doing now with your students? You know, to start the school year.
Yes. And that is something that I'm going into rooms and I've taught them that strategy in my multilingual moment during our PLCs. And so I was so proud today to see it being used. And I think she just used it off the fly. She didn't have any stems posted. She didn't have anything on a slide. I think she just thought, hey, we got some time. This is a good point in which to do that. So it required minimal planning. With writing, I've thought a roving paragraph that I believe it's Carol Salva that talks about that in a book of hers. That is a really thing. You can use that for any topic. You can go and research that. I know I'm minimal time here. And one other thing really quickly was I was talking to a second grade teacher that I've co-taught with, and she found something called 2 truths and a lie about whatever content you are learning about. Now, I haven't delved into that. How could I match that with English proficiency? But that was just yesterday. So those are 2 or 3 quick, easy things that you can differentiate instruction without freaking out and across many different proficiency levels.
April, I really love one of my favorites. It's probably because I used to be a kindergarten teacher before coming to ML. I love ABC books and having the students create ABC books.
Oh,
And
yes.
again, people think of that as kindergarten level, but you can do that across the level. So you could do it with math. A is for algebra, B is for binomials, and you can differentiate with maybe they can only do the letter in the sentence if they're lower proficiency, Or maybe it's a science topic and they can write a whole paragraph. And you can also have the
Correct.
flexibility of the student can write the entire ABC book themselves. Or I've got a class and you take A, you take B, you take C. And it really works well for social studies, science content, science. I mean, all things. And the older students love that. It's a hands-on project. It lets them be creative. It lets them be artistic. They can collaborate with their peers. And like I said, that's one of my favorite go-to strategies across
I love that idea. I've used ABC books for like things in the school or some of my little kiddos, but moving them up to those higher levels, that's I had never thought of that.
C is for cell, D is for DNA. It's like it's just not
Yes.
just the kindergarten level.
It's awesome.
Group storytelling is another one where, if you're doing ELA, and you could possibly do that with some science and social studies content. It could be more of essay where everybody's adding a sentence onto an essay. So one person's not writing it themselves, or you can do this as a whole class, or you could do it in groups. I would probably do it more with a grouping situation.
I think we're done on time.
Okay, sorry.
No. Don't let me rush you, but like finish, I guess.
That's good. Yeah.
Thank you guys so much. I'm going to introduce Jen. She is also the co-director of professional support.
Hi, everybody. I just want to hop on my soapbox, so pardon me while I get my box ready, to end our session tonight on projecting advocacy. So all of the core components of our role are just so important. Instruction being the first. Building relationships with families is imperative. There are just so many hats that we wear as MLP specialists. I think personally, our most important role, especially now, is to project advocacy for our children and their families. Without a voice, many of our multilingual students in the school setting may not have an equal access to the educational environment or instruction that they deserve. And oftentimes, our mainstream educators, our classroom teachers, mean so well, but in most states, pre-service educators are not required to have any coursework in multilingual learners or meeting their needs. And so it's not their fault that they don't know. So oftentimes our role includes professional development. It's super important that you're a voice at any table where decisions are being made for our students. It's very important, first and foremost, that we project that our students are everyone's responsibility in the school building. They are not just the responsibility of the ML specialist to teach them English so that they can be successful in the classroom. I project always that we are all language teachers, that it is so important to get to know each and every student in our classroom and find what strengths and assets they are bringing to the educational space. So in everything that you do as a multilingual specialist, you want to project that asset-based mindset. You want to talk about what your students can do, and as tactfully as possible, squash any conversations about what our students cannot do. It takes a mindset shift sometimes, because all of the assessments that our students are measured by aren't developed for them, and they are not developed with multilingual learners in mind. They're developed for native English-speaking students. Sometimes your lens will shift an entire conversation around data or student performance because teachers may not have considered before that the tools that they're using, the materials that they're using, are not designed to meet their students' needs. So whenever we're examining data about our school report card, I always want to celebrate the wins that our students demonstrate instead of measure the ways that they have not yet reached full proficiency. So I always try to lend that voice in conversations at PLCs, You want to advocate in spaces like IEP meetings for your children. If you don't think an accommodation that's pretty much designed for an English speaking student would be beneficial to your multilingual student, have that conversation. It kind of makes me sweaty a lot of the time to bring up things that shift the norm and disrupt what is typically said and done. But it's so important that sometimes we're the only person with the lens and perspective to advocate on behalf of our children. I want to be sure that I address the last question. This is something that I am extremely passionate about, especially now when English only is kind of being readdressed and pushed. And it is law in South Carolina that our schools are English only, or that our state's official language is English. But in educational spaces, in order to support our students in acquiring English, it is imperative that we leverage the language resources that our kids are bringing with them. So that means allowing space for their heritage or home language in the classroom. We should welcome and encourage it. There are assets that our kids are bringing, sometimes vast content knowledge that otherwise our kids would not be able to utilize or access if they were not allowed to use their first language. So we want to welcome and make space for the practice of translanguaging, which is the fluid movement in between English and the home language. And eventually leveraging those linguistic resources will help our students to fully acquire English more rapidly than if we shut down use of their home language. So they can oftentimes apply literacy skills they have in their L1 or first language to facilitate learning to read faster. Writing is easier in the home language, so we always want to make space for that and celebrate it because it's a part of who our students are. It's the language that they're loved in, and we can't teach without love. So I'm going to put my soapbox away, but those are my thoughts and feelings about being an advocate.
Can I just add a little bit and just say, I've had students tell me I could so write that if I could write it in Spanish. I could write the paragraph or the essay that the teacher wants if I could do it in Spanish. And I was like, well, easiest way is write it in Spanish and then translate it. Use your translator. Even though our school is allowed to use translators, I'm like, don't use it all the time, but to write this essay, write it in Spanish, translate it, and then turn it in. And you would be surprised what that does for them. Just being able to do that, it boosts their self-esteem so much to the point where they're now trying to speak in full sentences in English. And so it helps the student a lot when they can just use their language and grow from it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I tell parents, especially with the push of the science of reading, a lot of our ML families feel very frozen. They're not sure how to support English reading at home. And I always tell my families, your job is not to teach English reading at home if you are not an English reader. If you are a reader in Spanish or in Tagalog or whatever your home language is, you develop that proficiency in your student, and those literacy skills will transfer. We will do English at school, and you do your home language at home. And our goal is to raise bilingual children. We want full linguistic resources, not just half of 2 languages or more. So it's empowering to families as well.
Yeah, it very is, because they'll call and say, well, I can't do this homework because it's in English. Try it in Spanish. Math is their easiest subject because there's no reading involved. So when it comes to reading, just try to do it the best you can, and just don't. And their big question is, I don't want them to forget Spanish. I'm like, they would never forget Spanish unless you allow them to. So it can be here and there. So I wish more people would allow them to use their both languages. It would be great.
We're working on it. And I just linked in the chat our webpage about translanguaging, where we've created some resources and started talking more about this really important concept. And it's actually part of the literacy competencies that every teacher in South Carolina is supposed to know how to do. And so we are always ready to talk about supporting students' home languages in the classroom and supporting the maintenance of home languages at home as well. We don't want learning English to be a subtractive experience where kids come to school and they exchange one language for another. We are helping them to add English on to what they already know, and hopefully contributing to the sustaining of their other languages as well. Jennifer, I could hear you. Jen, I could hear you talk all day about advocacy and about these topics. I know she's very passionate, and we all are, about helping our students to succeed, and especially helping folks to recognize the amazing assets that our kids have, the knowledge and resources and experiences that they already have that we can leverage in our instruction. And I think that that's one of the threads that kind of runs throughout all of these topics, is really keeping students first and foremost in the front of all of our decision making and our knowledge of those students as well. We are coming up on 5:53. I am going to do a couple of last slides here, and then if we have some folks who want to stick around and chat, I think several of us are willing to do that. If there are other questions that come up, I haven't seen any other questions in the chat. Melinda, are we good on the chat? I think we are. So I wanted to just share quickly before you guys log off to follow us on social media. We do a lot of work there, creating content and resources to share with you. We've got other events coming up. We have our Book of the Month program. So many wonderful things happening. And this year we are having a different professional development focus each month. And so this month has been very much about the beginning of the year and getting started. That's where the theme for this event came from. And in September, we're going to be talking even more about working with students who are new to our schools. We are going to be resharing some of our newcomer events from the past. We have some really wonderful presentations that we're excited to share with you, both on newcomers K-12 and secondary newcomers as well. So that's really exciting in September. Bring your thoughts and questions to our Facebook group about newcomers in September. As we move forward, you could see the themes as they progress through the year. October, our focus is going to be engaging with families authentically, and we have some amazing speakers coming to you who are guests to our organization in October. We also are going to be celebrating an exciting book release with Emily Francis, who is debuting her children's books with us in October. So save the date for our October the 9th for one of our good friends to come share and read and talk about her process of writing children's books about her amazing journey to the United States. We'll talk about rural MLs in November. Preparing students for access. We're going to be talking about that a little bit earlier this year, specifically about preparing students. In the past, we've talked quite a bit about preparing schedules and materials, and those things are important, a la our compliance conversation earlier. We really want to talk about what it means to work with students and preparing them for this important assessment coming up in the spring. We're going to be talking also about sharing student stories and helping them, giving them the tools that they need to share their stories when they're ready and comfortable. And that can also be a tool for advocacy. In February, we've got an exciting new topic on artificial intelligence and working with multilingual learners. So come ready to learn with us about that topic. In March, we'll be featuring literacy as it's Read Across America kind of week and month. We're looking forward to sharing some of our knowledge about what the science of reading says about multilingual learners and what biliteracy research can contribute. In April, we're talking about culturally sustaining pedagogies, which will end us at the end of the year with some celebrations in May. We'll be talking about celebrating our accomplishments, what it means when students are reclassified, and just reflecting on our year. So that's kind of a play-by-play of what the year will look like. I also want to tell you quickly to save the date for November the 15th. On John's Island will be a really exciting in-person opportunity to get together at an amazing brewery where we're going to be raising money to support our activities. We are all volunteers running our organization, and we depend on folks' generosity to keep us going because it does cost a little bit to maintain our organization and structure. So we're really excited to have a chance to gather and raise money for a really important cause. And last is just a feedback survey. If you would please fill it out to help us understand how you experience our event tonight. We read these surveys. Don't be leadership team. We take a look at the feedback that you guys give us, and it helps us to plan future events. So if you would please fill that out before you log off today, that would be awesome. We'll also be sending it out on email. And if you need a certificate for professional development credit, you can get that by request at info@scmle.org. We're not going to be sending them out to every participant as we've done in the past. Those are going to be by request only. So we're happy to provide that for you if it's something that can help you with your recertification credit, although recertification's a new thing now. I don't really understand how all that's changing our professional development requirements. But anyway, if you need a certificate, let us know. Are there any details, other folks, that I've forgotten before we kind of open it up to a more casual chat here as folks move on with their evening? I have been linking some resources related to our conversations tonight in the chat, so make sure you pull those off if that's something that you're interested in reading later on. And we'll be sharing the recording for the event, which I'm going to be stopping now, kind of before we start this chat period, if that's okay.